Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is up, Lock Shoppers? Happy Friday to you all. Weekend just about here, and a full slate of the National Football League on tap on Sunday. No buys, and kind of a crazy game in the books from last night's Thursday nighter, which we will get to as well. Andrew Patterson with you. The big guys on the way to Calgary to call tonight's regular season finale for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Calgary Stampeders. So holding it down today with the dynamic duo from Coolbet, Patty Gregoire and JBM, Jake Boland-Moss. What's going on? Patty, let's just not bury the lead here. Clean shaven, getting ready for Movember or what?
Yes, a little bit earlier than I planned to shave down for November. Full disclosure, I was trimming up the facial hair yesterday. Didn't realize the clipper was on the one setting. And once you have a little bit of a patch right here, you have no choice but to go all in. But you're right, we're doing Movember again this year. And, you know, come October 31st, I was going to have to get rid of it anyway. So doing it a little bit earlier now. But feeling young, feeling fresh, feeling ready for a big weekend of NFL action. This is one of my favorite things as a Buffalo Bills fan or as any fan of any team. When your team plays the Thursday nighter, you have stress-free football for the rest of the week. Now, when I say stress-free, your stress doesn't go from being, man, I want my team to win. It now goes, man, I want my bets to win. And you don't have to worry about your team. It's all 100% on fantasy football and, of course, the big bets.
I thought that might have been a Halloween-related shave, going all out this year to do it. And speaking of Movember, Jake, I spent half of the month of November with you last year in Qatar, and you really got into it. It became a year-round thing. I mean, the stash never left. The duster is still proudly displayed on your grill.
Yeah, I'll be totally honest with you, Huss. I've never been a huge fan of the mustache. But you know, partially with the mullet, it's weird when I have a clean shave and a mullet going. Also, the girlfriend likes the mustache, so that never hurts to keep her happy as well.
Well, I love it. Do you guys have elaborate Halloween costumes and plans for this weekend just before we get to the main plan of winning some bets at Coolbet?
My Halloween costume this weekend will be I'm going as a good gambler because I need all the positive vibes as possible. So as much as I like to think I'm a sharp, let's be honest, sure, blind squirrel once in a while with a couple of parlay hits here and there. But the only thing I'm hoping for is some big wins this weekend.
Well, you know what? Let's get right to it. And by the way, shout out to everyone that's joining us on the live stream, all the podcast listeners. Another great night last night. I mean, man, we've been nailing a few of these partner parlays. We had a couple nice ride with Husses earlier this week, and then last night the Lock Shop partner parlay. Another cruise, Patty. I mean, we needed 3 more yards from James Cook, like in the third quarter. Got them, and that was a nice one. Well, almost 6-1, I think, plus 590 with the Dalton Kincaid. And by the way, I was feeling pretty good about myself. What did I say? I wouldn't even mind raising the number a little bit because he was going to have a big one. Listen, I had him in fantasy. I know a lot of people jumped on him yesterday. He had a real nice game. And your boy Josh Allen getting it done very early with his legs. What is close to a no sweat same game parlay as we've had in the Lock Shop in a while.
It was beautiful. And again, hindsight is 2020. When you got off, we started discussing some things, and James Cook was something that both of Dusty and I were interested in. We were all on the same page with Dalton Kincaid, and obviously that proved to be a no-brainer for us. But we were thinking of some other things. We're looking at the Bucs. Nothing really jumped off the page for us. So we went to Cook, and then I mentioned, well, I love for Josh Allen to get these legs going again. And I basically said, like, the last few weeks, Allen hasn't even come close to hitting that number 20 mark on the ground, but Josh Allen also hasn't been Josh Allen. Well, what do? They allow Josh Allen to be Josh Allen. He runs on the ground, gets some work done with his legs, and that kind of kickstarted the offense in the first half. Mind you, the second half, some questionable coaching calls. We won't get into that too much, but that was a no-brainer. And that was all on vibes. I didn't do any digging, anything. I basically was just like, if they want to win this game, if they want to get back to their swagger, Josh has to run. But the other thing is, we talked about Cook, and we're like, do we want to take 2 rushing props for the 2 same teams? So Dusty's like, maybe we'll just tease it down to 45.5. We should have teased it up by 10 because James Cook ended up with 67 rushing yards. That was a no problem bet. I know it took us to get to the fourth quarter, but with them pounding the rock in the second half, that was a no doubter. So I agree. One of the easiest no sweat bets we've had for the lock shop here all season long. And I'm hoping we can keep the positive vibes rolling. I know we don't have Dusty. He'll be listening on his way to Calgary. But Jake, myself, you, we've done these football Fridays a few times now, and we've been able to be pretty successful. So let's continue the positive vibes.
Oh, listen, I can't wait. I was 3-1 last week and managed to pick the right 3 games to put into the ride with us. So, I mean, really the last week and a half, well, actually dating back to the previous week with the 5-0 daily picks, I've sort of heating up at the right time when all the sports are back, right? I mean, We've got the World Series, which we've dabbled in a little bit, did lose the Bucks pick in the NBA. So it wasn't a perfect night last night, but between the lock shop and Winnipeg Sports Talk, I mean, our big conversation was about Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuck going back to Detroit last night. KFC getting the goal early, cashing that prop, Nikolai Ehlers scoring, hitting his prop. And then the over on the shots was great. I do regret not coming through with what I'd said about maybe a Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay with an under goals for Connor Hellebuck and the KFC goal, but it all came together. But let's face it, when you're going good, you're going good. And the backdoor cover of the Buccaneers last night was an absolute all-timer. Down 14 in the final minutes of the game. The Bucks go 92 yards on a 17-play drive that had an illegal contact penalty on a 4th down, and maybe the most ridiculous penalty yet, the face mask in the process of sacking Baker Mayfield on a 4th down, which would have won the game, ends up being about 25 yards of field position, a 1st down, and then he clunks one off the DB's head for a touchdown. The Bucks covered the spread. Pat, what was even more bananas about it, though? And listen, if you had a Bucks ticket, you were happy. The Bills almost found a way to lose that game. I mean, I'm sure if you're a Bills fan, you probably did not want to watch the replay of that Hail Mary more than once. But Baker Mayfield, God bless him, he balled out. He found a way to get it up in the air. And I mean, that was about as perfectly a thrown Hail Mary. Dan Orlovsky did a great breakdown of it on Twitter this morning, if you want to kind of see how that play happened. And, a little bit of better awareness getting off of one of those guys, not to mention full-fledged pass interference. They're actually quite lucky. It wasn't an untimed down from the one.
Mm-hmm.
But it got a lot hairier than it should have been for the Buffalo Bills. I think we can safely say that. That being said, we'll take the cover.
Oh, you'll always take the cover. And I said it as a Bills fan. I said there is zero reason that the Bills should be favored by 9.5 or even 8.5, whatever it may be. But I mean, they showed that pretty much that entire game that, in fact, they were almost 2 touchdowns better than the Bucks. Just the microcosm of this Bills team outside of the inconsistency has been the lack of being able to put teams out. Of course, obviously, those 2 massive victories at the start of the season. But besides that, any of their wins, they've either been coming from behind to win games, or they just haven't been able to really put teams down. And the big reason has been questionable play calling in the second half. Some really, really, really chicken crap calls on 4th down, not going for it. Jake and myself talked about this in our group chat with some of the work guys. Like your 3rd and goal, and you decide to go shotgun, even though you're pretty much on the 2-yard line, moving yourself back 5 yards. And the Bills aren't the only ones who do that. It's becoming a problem in football that going out of the shotgun in the red zone when you're right on the goal line makes no sense to me. But the penalties on that last drive were just mind-boggling. And you can't even blame it on the refs. What are you doing? Face mask. all he had to do was just lay on top of Baker. Look how much you could look at the size difference between the defensive lineman and Baker Mayfield. All he had to do was just lay on top of him, and he was going down. Game over, spread over. But this is why it's fun to bet on the National Football League. You're never out of it until you hear that last whistle go.
No doubt about it. We got a great slate of games. Jake, you're surprised? Does it not seem weird that after a bunch of teams having bye weeks, we're at week 8, right smack dab in the middle of the season, and we have a completely full slate of games with nobody on the bye?
Yeah, it is interesting. I was surprised to hear that there was no buys this week. I don't know if it's part of that, the extra week being added, the extra game, and they're just like, we can kind of get to the middle of the season, we can get everyone playing in week 8, and yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the idea behind it is. Maybe they're like, oh, we don't want anyone on this World Series. I'm sure the NFL was happy to see the World Series is going to end up being, Rangers D-backs. They know no one's going to be worried about that pretty much for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting one, Huss, but, we're not going to complain about a full slate of games here this upcoming Sunday.
Okay, listen, before we get into some of our favorite games and some of the top games, I've got Dusty's picks. I've got my picks. We'll crank out a partner parlay and maybe a couple ride parlays as well. Let's get to some quarterback news right off the bat. And Pat, we're still waiting to hear clarification as to the San Francisco 49ers quarterback situation. Brock Purdy nicked up. Apparently, I think potentially he was in concussion protocol, did not practice Wednesday. They said that there was a chance that he plays yesterday, but we saw the line go from 5.5 for the Niners to 3.5. And it's now kind of going back and forth between 4 and 4.5. Listen, Purdy's been one of the great stories of the NFL season. Sort of had a bit of a return to reality, I think, the last couple weeks with, the games against Cleveland, then, of course, Minnesota last week. Huge opportunity for Sam Darnold if he does get in with that offense. But let's maybe touch on that Cincinnati-San Francisco game and your thoughts on, that game with Purdy or with Darnold starting.
I was really surprised that the number moved that much. And now we're seeing it kind of go back to reality. So I think we're seeing the money on both sides kind of even out a little bit, which is ultimately what the sports book wants, right? It's the least amount of risk on one side. With that being said, Brock Purdy, yes, you're right. Fantastic story, Mr. Irrelevant, playing on one of the most electrifying offenses in football. But the last 2 weeks, you nailed it. And you could really put a lot of the emphasis on the lack of great play from Purdy, maybe after that quarterback sneak. I know there are some numbers out on Twitter that after he took that hit, maybe he actually was playing concussed, and his I think actually both interceptions were after that point. But with that being said, he was trending in a different way. We know with there being more film out on these guys, coaches find ways to slow offenses down. They find ways. I don't think you're ever going to shut down this 49ers offense. But for me, the bigger injury is Debo. And you can see that this team is missing Debo Samuel. He is such a catalyst on this offense. He can do everything.
Debo? Christian McCaffrey in the first half. Like, we don't, I think, appreciate enough what Debo does from a blocking standpoint. I mean, he absolutely erases linebackers. And I mean, his absence was glaring more so in the running game than the passing game, I thought, Patty.
Yeah, 100%. You took the words right out of my mouth. And I think it puts more emphasis on CMC, which is fine because he's an elite talent. You could even probably call him a generational talent, let's be honest. But with that being said, Debo just does so many different little things. He blocks. He can catch the pass, obviously, out of the backfield. He can line up as a wideout. He can run the ball. He just does so much, and they are desperately missing him. And I think if you look at Brock Purdy from the first few weeks to Sam Darnold, I think you could make an argument that there is a bit of a drop-off. But the Brock Purdy that we've seen the last 2 weeks to Sam Darnold, how much of a drop-off really is that? I think Darnold's going to be able to come in and do exactly what Brock Purdy did the last 2 weeks, if not better. This is a veteran quarterback. Look what he was able to do with the Panthers that one season. Like he is not the quarterback that I think a lot of experts and a lot of teams thought he could be one day, but I think he's serviceable enough. And I think if Samuel is in the lineup, I think 49ers absolutely can take this. But for me, my bigger concern here for the 49ers is Samuel, not the quarterback situation.
Yeah, which is wild to say. But I think that speaks to listen, Purdy's been awesome this year. He was back at practice yesterday, so I think that they're thinking that he'll be back, but they do have a backup plan if it doesn't go well. Listen, before we get to our picks for this weekend in these games, I want to quickly hit the futures board because we've got some of the things that we were hoping to get earlier on this week are up, namely MVP. But Jake, defensive player of the year is now basically a 3-horse race. TJ Watt at plus 210, Myles Garrett at plus 230, and Micah Parsons at plus 235. I mean, very close to being a dead heat right now. I mean, you'd have to go all the way down to Aiden Hutchinson at 22-1 and Nick Bosa at 25-1. Chris Jones as well, 25-1. But very clear that it seems like the voters are going to be focusing on these three guys. If you were laying a nickel down on one of the defensive player of the year nominees, who's getting your money?
Listen, I think it all depends on what team you think is going to perform better down the stretch. I think, I'm still not sold on Pittsburgh, man. I know we talked about it last week, and Hussey, I mean, you shoved it right in our faces. They went outright, and Pat and I are just like in awe that Pittsburgh is still doing this. So, I mean, we know what TJ Watt is. He's a game wrecker. I mean, all three of these guys are. But, you think about Cleveland, there are obviously issues at the quarterback position. Can Myles Garrett get them to an above 500 record? Like, that's going to be a question mark. I mean, Parsons' longest shot on the board, not by much, obviously, of those three guys, plus 235. I think maybe that's where I go. He's kind of been on the cusp, these last couple years. Did he win it last year? I can't really remember. Did he win it last year?
Bosa won it.
Bosa? Okay, yeah. So, I mean, Parsons right there. I mean, he's been right there. And if Dallas can, put together some good games here, get to like the 10-7 or something along those lines, even an 11-6. I think he's probably the one that I would have my eye on. TJ won it a couple years ago, and you get in that scenario where people are like, well, voter, whatever it is, the voter recency bias, where they're just like, yeah, maybe it's Parsons' year, or maybe whatever.
The one thing I'll say about Watt and Garrett is that both of them are catalysts of defenses that are keeping their teams alive. Like, the Steelers have no business being where they're at right now. The Browns are 4-2 with little to nothing from Deshaun Watson so far, and they're playing an XFLer and PJ Walker right now. So I think that if those teams, like your point's very well taken, if one of those teams wins the division or gets into the playoffs and they still have this same sort of pedestrian offensive production, I think those guys might get a bit more credit. Patty, let me hit this one to you. Coach of the year. Co-favorites. Mike McDaniel, plus 375. Dan Campbell in Detroit, plus 675. And we should mention D'Amico Ryans at 6-1 and Robert Saleh 10-1 in New York. That with the Jets team that we'll get to in a minute, still hanging around despite losing Aaron Rodgers.
I think if I had to, place a value bet here, D'Amico Ryans is there. And I don't know if he will win the award if that team doesn't make the playoffs, but I think they're going to at least be sniffing around come, week 14, 15 in the hunt. I think we see a Texans logo there. I don't know if they ever get into a playoff spot, but I think they're going to be sniffing around. With that being said, Dan Campbell or Mike McDaniel, this is tough because, I was all aboard on the Lions train. I think last week shows maybe they're not quite as good as we thought. I talked about them being indoor cats, and I think that actually it's crazy to say, but I do think they're a team that plays better in domes, plays better in warm climates, because we've seen now a few times that when they do get to some of these colder climates, they don't play as well. Mind you, they got whomped by a Ravens team who I think is trending in the right direction. On the flip side, Mike McDaniel cooking up one of the best offenses in the game. Maybe this is me putting on my Bills hat, but prove it to me against a good defense. That's twice now that they've gone up against a legitimate defense and they've been exposed as a gimmick offense. Against the Bills, they had 2 really strong drives. They go out, score 14 points, but after the after they go out and their manufactured offense is done, teams are able to pick this up. So again, take that with a grain of salt from a salty Buffalo Bills fan. I think with what Dan Campbell has in terms of talent, compared to Mike McDaniel, yes, the offense is electric, but like look at all the pieces that he has there to work with. Whereas Dan Campbell, I think, is getting more out of his team, and I think a big part that goes into it as well, guys, is that sometimes this Coach of the Year award also turns into the most improved team.
For sure.
So that's why I think Campbell or maybe a Ryans might come from the voters. They might get more votes because of that.
No, good point. Shout out to Cowboy and Chad. He's got Parsons at plus 500 from the start of the season. He's still
Nice.
very much into that. All right, let's get to these games this week. By the way, regular season MVP as expected. Mahomes favorite plus 235. Tua 5-1. Jalen Hurts and Lamar plus 550, and McCaffrey very much in the mix right now at 9-1. To the games we go. Jake, I'm going to start with you. Quick thought on your Patriots going into Miami to take on. There was a scare. They thought maybe Tyreek Hill wouldn't play. Looks like he will play. That game stays at 9 or 9.5 right now. Pats coming off a huge win last week in incredible fashion, the way they came back and got that late touchdown against the Buffalo Bills. Can they build on this, or is this going to be a long, long afternoon for the Pats?
Oh, Huss. I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. And, I'd love to come on here and praise the word of Bill Belichick. And, but I mean, how Pat and I thought about that Bills-Pats game last week. And, we saw it was kind of like one of those Belichick masterclasses. Just when you think he's out, he jumps back up. He's like Rocky, Just when you think he's down, he's back up and he's back in the fight. I don't know. You got to think the Pats' bellies are pretty full after that one. You beat a divisional opponent. Then you got to go on the road for another divisional game. And, these teams met earlier in the season. Only a 7-point game or an 8-point game. So, I mean, Pats kept it within the number last time. Obviously, this is a little different. They're in Miami. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but, that sunny visitor sideline in Miami can start to get hot if it's one of those weekends. So I don't know if I have to bet it, you see a big number in a divisional game. I think I would go with the dog, but I don't think I'd want to put that out into the world and say, this is a bet that if we're talking Mr. Lean, I know he's sitting here listening to his chat right now. That my lean would be the Pats, but I don't love it by any circumstance.
Another thing to think about in this game, and I'm not taking this game in my 4 best bets, but there is the potential of a bit of a look ahead here. The next week, the Dolphins go to Frankfurt, Germany, to take on the Chiefs in one of the most anticipated games of the year. We all know where New England is. I kind of have a feeling this game might be a little closer although Miami has just throttled teams lower than them. I mean, they've had a tough time in Buffalo. They had obviously had that loss last week against the Eagles. But it does set up a pretty interesting matchup. Patty, there's a couple games I wanted to get thoughts from you. We talked about the Bengals and the 49ers, so we'll get to picks on that one in a minute. The Vikings, I think, completely, they didn't just save their season. They completely changed the narrative around them with that win against San Francisco. Everyone thought that they were going to lose and be at 2-5. And then this game this week against the Packers would probably determine whether Danielle Hunter was getting traded or a couple of other pieces potentially be on the move. With the win against San Francisco, putting them to 3-4, with their schedule lightening up and getting a bunch of divisional opportunities, I mean, the Vikes gave themselves a glorious opportunity to get right back in it, especially with Detroit losing in 2 more games against Detroit. This is a really interesting one. The line, I believe, is 1.5 right now for the Packers. For the Vikings. laying 1.5 on the road. But I mean, even just from a money line perspective, how do you see this game? Green Bay has been struggling, and Minnesota seems to really maybe turn around the corner after playing well, but losing their first 3 games in the opposite fashion that they won all their games last year.
Yeah, it really feels like water is finding its level with this Vikings team in terms of the way that last year they found ways to win, or they kind of stumbled their way into winning. But now I feel like they realize, okay, this is our season. They're it's not like they're like, oh, okay, we got to start winning. I just think that now it's evening itself out. We saw them lose so many close games this year. I think that now they're realizing, okay, we got to get going here, and they're going to find ways to win. The defense actually looked really great last week. I thought, with the exception of maybe, I don't even know, I can't even reference the game exactly, but Kirk Cousins has been playing quite well this year. Like when you look at his numbers, he's been playing really well. None of these losses fall on his hands. We talked about it last week, like that game against the Chiefs, potentially with a flag, maybe they find their way to win that game. I don't want to buy you too much into the Vikings because maybe they are fraudulent, and maybe last year what we saw out of them is leveling out. But I just really don't think the Packers are a very good football team. I think they are not a good team at all. I think Jordan Love has a lot to learn. He has really, really not looked good at all. And I think that in this case, the Vikings, I don't want to say the Packers are out of it, but I feel like there's a lot more on the line here for the Vikings. I think they build off that momentum from last year. And the fact that it's only a 1.5 point spread, these games in Lambeau against the Vikings division, the NFC North, are always a little bit crazy. Maybe you think instead of taking the 1.5, you just go money line at minus 123. This isn't on my card, but a la Mr. Lean, I would be leaning the Vikings here because I just have zero interest in betting the Packers.
All right. Before we get to Mr. Lock, let's quickly, Jake, rapid, just quick hitters. Give me maybe say your two of your favorite games against the spread this week. Pat, then I'm going to hit you with your favorite couple. Then I'll roll out Dusty's picks and my picks, and then we can start considering what we want to do for a couple parlays in the exclusives.
Maybe I'll go first because I think Jake is frozen.
Yeah,
I'm talking to him on the other line.
It's just that deep gaze. I'm like, man, he is really concentrating on this question right now. Holy smoke.
Someone please screen grab that, because him wearing that leaf hat, that could definitely be a meme later on in the hockey season.
Listen, give me a couple of your favorite picks against the spread this week.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple that I really like. There's one that's really ugly. Let's just start with the ugly one. Bears plus 8.5. This has a lot to do with the Bears, I think, kind of getting disrespected here. And I'm not trying to say the Bears and Tyson Badgett are a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but I just don't understand why this is a full more than a touchdown. The Chargers haven't won by a touchdown this season. They're 2-4, and both those wins came less than a touchdown, and they're both against pretty bad football teams. In fact, dating back to last year, Huss, they've only won by more than a touchdown only 2 times. And the Bears, I think, they are starting to trend in the right direction. They're 2-1-1 against the spread. Their defense is looking a lot better. They're getting healthier. And I don't think Badgett has to go out there and be a world beater. I don't think he just needs to kind of manage the game. And at the end of the day, the Chargers going to charger themselves. They'll probably win this game. They'll probably win by maybe a touchdown or a field goal. They play close games. There is no way in the world that they should be favored by more than a touchdown. So I'm going to take the Bears here. I'm going to plug my nose, but I'm going to take the Bears here. The other couple of games, Seahawks minus 3.5 against the Browns. I get it. The Browns are a legitimate defense. Myles Garrett, MVP, not just defensive MVP. I think his name should be in the conversation for overall MVP. But I think this Seahawks team, and I actually got this at minus 2.5 earlier. I'd still consider betting it at minus 3.5. The Seahawks, they have a very underrated defense. When you look at some of the DVOA, the EPA stats, they're right near the top when it comes to defense. I think that their offense Actually, it suits pretty well against this Browns defense. They've got a strong run game. Geno Smith, I think, is second or third in completion percentage since week 2. And since that opener, this team has turned things around. They've won 4 of their last 5, going 3-1-1 against the spread during that span. So I wish you folks at home could get it at the -2.5, because I wouldn't be surprised if it does go by a field goal. But I also am pretty confident in this Seahawks team. And then one of the favorite teams of the lock shop, the Texans, -3.5. I don't understand why this is only 3.5. The Panthers are a team that are proving to be one of the best offensive teams in the National Football League. We talked about D'Amico Ryans being a candidate for a coach of the year. They are just a team that I'm much more confident in, and I think that they can win by more than a field goal. On the flip side, the Panthers are a dumpster fire, man. They are a team that is in big trouble. Not only have they not won a football game this season, they haven't covered the spread, and they have failed to cover the spread by 7 points per game. The Texans covered their last 4 games by an average of 16 points. And you might be saying, Pat, you've done this before. How long have you been betting for? This is a rat line. Well, give me all the cheese. I don't care. Give me the cheese. I'm taking Texans -3.5.
Carolina is coming off the bye. We'll see if that maybe makes a difference, a little bit extra time to prepare for this one. But they got to get off the schneid and get a win. Although I know all the Bears fans will be hoping that they continue having that 0 in the win column. Jake, we've got you back. We just thought you were really in deep concentration about that pick. Give me a couple of your favorite spread picks before we get to the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm a little frazzled right now, but yeah, when I was looking at them, the one that caught my eye was Titans as a home dog. Listen, there's a lot of talk about Derrick Henry being traded right now. Obviously, the trade deadline's next week on Halloween, so that could be a spooky time for a lot of football fans. But I don't know. I see the Titans. I think about Vrabel. I was listening to Will Compton there. He was talking about how Vrabel gets a team motivated, and they're 2-14. They're last in the division right now, and he's the type of that guy that goes, you know what, Derek, you're getting traded. Tannehill, you're over the hump. And he just starts telling his guys, like, this is what they're saying. This is what the media is saying. You're an underdog at home. Like, are you kidding me? This is the type of game I could see them winning outright. So I like them +2.5 at home. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a bit on Burrow, coming off the bye. Unsure what's going on with the quarterback situation in San Fran. I know it's in San Fran, which I don't necessarily love, but it sounds like Burrow's getting healthier and healthier each week. And I think this is one of those games you could go in there and really make a statement that, like, the Bengals are back. They get about 500 with a win this week in San Fran. That would be huge. So I like them as a dog as well. And then I think, Pat, did you mention the Bears? I missed it. How are the Chargers an 8.5-point favorite against anybody? I don't know. I kind of like the Bears too. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I'm a sucker. But I think that's a Sunday nighter.
Come eat the cheese with me.
Yeah, buddy. I'll come eat the cheese.
It might be a rat, but
I'll be honest. I think there's a lot of rat lines out there this week. Every time I look at a line, I'm like, Vikings only 1.5 favorites off a big win. Like, going to Lambeau, I kind of get it, but like, Packers haven't been that good. That seems like a rat line. I know you guys talked about Texans, Panthers. There's a lot out there that I don't necessarily like. I'm not dying to get on just yet, but I'm sure I'll find a pick for each game here by weekend's end, I'm sure.
All right. Well, let's get to our best bets for myself and Dusty. Just looking very similar to last week. We're with each other on one, and we're going head-to-head on another, and then Dusty's got a couple other games that I didn't stay on. We'll start it off. Dusty's still riding with this guy, Trevor Lawrence, and the Jags. Listen, the Jags have been really impressive. They rattled off 4 in a row of some really tough scheduling. And they're going into Pittsburgh. This is a 2.5-point spread right now. Jacksonville, a road favorite. So Dusty's got the Jags in at -2.5.
Don't do it, Dusty. I know you're watching right now. Don't do it. I fell right into that Steelers trap last week.
Yeah, guess which game we're going head-to-head on. We've got the and then he's going to the Minnesota Green Bay game, and he's going to lay the 1.5 with Minnesota. And it's still amazing they did that without Justin Jefferson. We kind of mentioned this on Tuesday's show, but the monster performance by Jordan Addison, I think, gives a lot more, potential. And Hawkinson has just been an absolute beast right now. I do think the Vikings are better. This is a tough spot for them coming in on a short week going into Green Bay. So I'm staying away from that, but I know a lot of people in my area will love the pick of the Vikings to see if they can get to 4-4 after that big win.
That's the Creed factor right there for Dusty. That put him over the top
Yes,
for sure.
of course.
For sure.
Exactly. This is an interesting one, and this is one that I hope he's right, but I've seen it too many times to go the other way. Chiefs -7 in Denver. And, the Chiefs did cover against the Broncos a couple of weeks ago on that Thursday nighter. But that was the Harrison Butker game where he kicked a 54-yarder and a 60-yarder. And the second one, of course, to basically put the game away and make it an 11-point game. And most importantly, for bettors, cover the spread. I will say that the Chiefs traditionally, sometimes it's like they're just going through live televised outdoor practices, and they don't really in the division. It is. I just kind of don't trust the Chiefs sometimes to go and blow these teams out that they should be doing. And that Denver, their defense played really well against Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. So I was a little nervous about that one. We saw it at 6.5. It's at 7 right now. So Dusty's laying the 7 with the Chiefs. And then the final pick is the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals right now, it's been going back and forth between 4 and 4.5. Listen, if you want to take it at 4, it's -109. I think that half point is more than worth going from -109 to -116 in this in this particular situation to get it to 4.5. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, because that is the game that we are on together. And I'm sort of with you, Jake, on this one. I think, first of all, let's talk about Cincinnati's situation right now. They're 3-3. They're last place in the NFC North. Mm-hmm. Cleveland is 4-2. Pittsburgh somehow is 4-2. And the Ravens are 5-2 right now. Now, listen, this is going to be a real tough spot for them to win the game. I don't rule out them winning this game. San Francisco, obviously, with a couple losses, is going to be looking to get right. But you've got the Niners on a short week. You've got the Bengals with an extra week of rest and practice to get ready for this game. I think this is a great spot for Cincinnati. And I'm definitely taking the points on that one. So I think we can basically lock that one in for the partner parlay.
Yep. I like that one.
The other games that I like, well, let's just go to it. The Steelers, a first pick on my card. Now I know Jacksonville has had success in Pittsburgh in the past. The infamous Blake Bortles 2017 playoff game where they put up 44 or whatever, and then obviously lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. But Pittsburgh just keeps on finding ways to win. And they've won 3 games this year already of their 4 wins when they have been trailing going into the fourth quarter. But it really starts with this defense. And I don't know what the voodoo or magic that Mike Tomlin has, but he just finds ways to win. Here's a stat for you folks. Mike Tomlin as a home underdog, 18-5-3 against the spread.
Crazy.
I think the Jags are an exhausted team right now. They have played quite well. Pittsburgh's really hungry. That stadium is going to be insane. I'm taking the Steelers as the home dog. Love them. And if you want to get a little more aggressive, or you're putting together a money line parlay or some money line spots, Pittsburgh at +121 looks pretty good. But no problem with that 2.5. If you did want to get it to 3, it's -119. 3.5, and that sometimes I'll do that. I'll kind of get the extra point, especially over 3 when we're putting it together for a few other games to maybe give yourself a better chance of not having that be an anchor of a parlay. But Pittsburgh +2.5, my first pick, along with Cincinnati +4.5. You know what? I'm going to go to the Eagles -6.5 in Washington, and you guys will know I've picked Washington against Philly earlier this season when they had that wild game that finished up 38-35. again last year on them. Like I have rode Washington against Philly over the last season and a half.
Left
I
hand
really
up.
think, yeah, I mean, I love putting the left hand up. I don't think we're going to be putting the left hand up this weekend. I think Philly coming off of that big win against Miami, I think they build up this. I think they'll frankly be a little bit pissed off that they've had the amount of trouble, if you will, they've had with Washington. That was the team that ended their unbeaten season last year. That was the team that basically gave them the biggest test so far this year, other than that crazy game they lost to the New York Jets. So, I mean, this game is at 7 right now. If you want to get it at -105, I was in earlier at -115 at -6.5. I think that touchdown makes a lot of sense to take the -6.5 just because of the history between these teams. But man, they can't protect Sam Howell. There's just not a lot going on in Washington right now, and they're going up against the standard in that NFC East. So give me the Philadelphia Eagles. And then my final game, listen, I don't feel great about this one. And I know that I do have a knack and habit for betting against the Dallas Cowboys at any opportunity because I've said that they're the most public team and you're always getting good value betting against Dallas. But I have a confidence that I think the Rams can make this a game. Like, I don't think they're going to get steamrolled. It is an early game, which is traditionally you think that's probably a tough spot for the West Coast team. But I'll tell you what, the Dallas Cowboys almost never play at noon at home either. Like, I think both of these teams are going to be in a little bit of a strange spot right now. What Cooper Kupp is doing and Puka, the rookie, I mean, they've really added, the addition of Nakua has added a whole nother dimension to this Rams offense. And Matt Stafford's been playing well. The Cowboys have some injuries on the defensive side of the football, and you never know what you're getting from Dak Prescott and that Cowboys offense. So I think 6.5 is the line makes sense. But I really do think that the Rams can be in this. And to be honest, even if, like we saw last night, even if they're down by 10, 13 points, you've always got that opportunity for a backdoor cover when it comes to this big of a number. So I'm going to take the Rams plus 6.5. So just to go over my picks again, Rams plus 6.5 in Dallas, Philly minus 6.5 in Washington, the Steelers as a home dog plus 2.5 against Jacksonville. And we're going to take Cincinnati plus 4.5 against the San Francisco 49ers. So looking at the picks right now, I think we can all agree that we're going to throw Cincy plus 4.5 on this parlay. Dusty's got it. I've got it. You guys like it. We're head to head on the Pittsburgh-Jacksonville, so I'll save Pittsburgh for the ride with Huss. What do you think about the Eagles? What do you think about the Rams, you guys, about either of those picks? If we want to maybe throw those with the Bengals for our pick number 2.
To be honest, I feel like every time I'm on the Rams or bet against them, it flips the other side. So I would maybe vote to stay away. But then again, that's just me personally. Eagles makes a ton of sense. You talk about that offensive line and Sam Howell, how much he's just been absolutely banged up. And you think about that Eagles defense, I think they should go to absolute 10. I think they're going to really feed off that victory. I think that was probably their best win of the season. Only thing that's concerned, how healthy is Hurts? If Hurts is kind of banged up, they get up big in the first half. Do they take him out? Do we see Mariota? Like, that's the one thing that concerns me. But I think that's a safe bet. No pun intended there.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I think if we're talking about the Eagles, I knew they had a gauntlet coming up here. So after the Commanders, they got Cowboys at home, Chiefs at KC, Bills at home, Niners at home, and then to the Cowboys in their next, that's 5 games. So feels like one they got to have. They just got Byard in there as well from Tennessee. I think that'll be some nice juice for the defense that's already really impactful. I can get on board with the Eagles for sure.
Hey, one other game that I'll throw out there that I actually love. I only had 4 picks to bake. Patty, I know you're on Seattle, so I kind of like Cleveland plus 3.5. I mean, I think that team is just so damn good defensively. They'll find a way to stay in that game. But what about the Jets? Minus 2.5 against the Giants. Tyrod Taylor's back in. To me, I mean, the Jets playing a road game in their home stadium at 3-3. They're coming off a little bit of extra rest. They've had a couple big wins lately. Their defense is so far and away the best unit on the field in this football game. I kind of like the Jets at -2.5. Where are you guys on the Battle of New York?
Go ahead, Pat.
I like the Jets here. You heard me last week on the lock shop. I said I think the Jets might be the best team in that division. That defense is unbelievable. And again, that might be a little bit tongue in cheek, obviously, but I just feel like this is a team. Yes, what Tyrod Taylor has done over the last couple of weeks is impressive, but he still didn't score a touchdown against a Bills team that had a billion injuries, and then what we saw last week was going up against a pretty not great team that they ended up finding their ways to win. So I would not have any issues if we added the Jets there. I also kind of do like the.
Well, we got the Bears.
What else?
Bears.
I mean, I was gonna say what else did Dusty have, but yeah, I mean, I can get on board with the Jets for sure. I think that defense is probably one of the most legit defenses in the league. I mean, they're really a quarterback away, which is crazy to say. I think a lot of people have said that. Can't imagine what this team would look like if it was Aaron Rodgers at the helm. So I can get on board with them. What else do we got there, Huss?
Well, Dusty's on the Cincinnati, which we've got in, and then his other two picks were Minnesota -1.5 and the Chiefs -7. The Chiefs, as I say, that is listen, watch they'll go and they actually will blow out.
Yeah,
that is just a dangerous line.
So
we'd have to take
so
one
here
side or the other.
Yeah, I would suggest going down. But this is the narrative about the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's true in years past. They cover the spread. They're 5-2, which is tied for the best against the spread record in the National Football League. Mind you, they're only covering by on average 3.7 points, so they're right around there. So if we did want to put the Chiefs in there, I would suggest going down to -6.5. The Broncos are just not a good football team. They really are not a good football team, and the Chiefs have dominated them, especially in the Patrick Mahomes era. But with that being said, I get it, Dusty. It's your Huss. It's your team. You probably don't want to bet on them, and I feel like we have.
I don't mind it. I mean, if you guys want to throw the Chiefs at 6.5 on it, I can. If you guys feel comfortable about it.
The only thing I worry about is it's a divisional road game. Pretty big favorite in a divisional road game. Like those ones just can get weird. And like, I'm not saying the Chiefs aren't going to cover. I'm a little hesitant on them going to Denver and, and winning by a touchdown. I can just see it going. I can see it being a really weird game, and the Chiefs are cruising like they're.
Well, I'll put this to you guys. We're going to put Philly. We're going to put Philly at -6.5.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put the Bengals at +4.5. Who would you rather have, Chiefs -6.5 or Bears +8.5?
Bears is on my card, so I would probably lean Bears. But like the fact that we're going Bears over Chiefs makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I mean Bears is another pick I like too. I just don't think the Chargers should be favored by that.
No, we're not. We are not putting the faith of this parlay in the hands of Tyson Badgett. We're not.
What about the Jets? Why do we come off the Jets? We were on there, and then we kind of
we all sniffing around the Jets.
On board with the Jets?
I'm completely fine. Just if you guys didn't want to go with the Jets and with one of those ones, I'll put the Jets on the ride with us. But I'm fine with it either way.
I don't know. Well, and listen, if it's Chiefs, we'll just blame Dusty. If the Chiefs said screw it, we'll just blame Dusty. It was his pick.
Yeah, you know what?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, here we are.
Kidding, Dusty.
Guys, write this down. Partner parlay, Cincy, and let's just see what it is right now if we move it. So we're going to take out the Rams. We'll take out the Steelers. We'll take out the Jets, the Browns, and then we've got Kansas City at 6.5 -122. So that's +533. Yeah. So we'll see what that comes out to. That is a pretty nice one. 4.5 plus Cincinnati, Philly -6.5, Chiefs -6.5. That'll be our partner parlay. And then the ride with us, I'm going to bulk up on these big defenses. We're taking Pittsburgh +2.5. Where are the Steelers here? Here we go. 2.5. Oh, and it's -104. Like you can get 3 right now. Oh, it's a big, big difference from 2.5 to 3, which makes sense. Anyways, Pittsburgh plus 2.5. I'm taking Cleveland plus 3.5. And where are the Jets? Jets minus 2.5. That one comes out to plus 616 before we let the Ev Dog take care of things. So I'm sure
J-Rock
Dusty
today. J-Rock.
throw in a ride with Dusty, but we'll get those ones in and probably fire out a few other picks on Twitter over the course of the weekend, a few player props and whatnot. But I like it. We've gone through the process. We've done the work. Now it's time to get those things up in the Coolbet exclusive and make it happen. Lock shoppers, again, if you haven't played at Coolbet, what are you waiting for? Use the promo code LOCKSHOP. When you sign up, you'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And click on that exclusives tab. You'll see the Lock Shop section a little later on this afternoon, I'd imagine. We'll have that 3-game partner parlay. And we'll see if I can bang out another winner on the ride with Huss with the playing the big defenses of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and New York. Fellas, have an awesome weekend. We'll be in touch. Are you guys going to crank out any college football bangers?
Oh, absolutely. It's there's some
hot.
good ones. Yeah, we're hot. Two in a row on the Saturday sweat. But one quick thing to let the cool bettors know. We talked about the World Series briefly. Right now at Coolbet, we have a campaign going on, a promotion, $10 win boost for any 2 World Series games upcoming. So you can bet on a prop, on money line, spread, whatever it is, you'll get a 10% boost. So head over to the promotions tab. You can click it in there, opt in, and then you'll see the the 10% multiplier. Click that and you get 10% profit on your win.
A couple other things up at Coolbet to check out. Fury and Ngannou this weekend. Fury minus 2,000. Ngannou 8-1 underdog. And the WWE Crown Jewel odds are up as well. So appreciators of the squared circle and the art of sports entertainment, check that out as well. Fellas, have a great weekend. We got a big Winnipeg sports talk coming up. Big win last night for the Jets. Getting ready for the Habs tomorrow night. We'll be all over that. We'll talk NFL with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, checking with the Bombers with Ed Tate. So if you're with us now and you want to keep on the party going, head on over to Winnipeg Sports Talk. I know Iwanik's going to take you guys up with more programming on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Lock Shop. Give a follow at Lock Shop Bets on Twitter. And, of course, P. Greggy, Jake Bolin Moss, Coolbet Canada, and me at Hustlerama. And, of course, the big guy, Dustin Nielsen. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy the week in the NFL. We'll see you Monday in the Lock Shop.
And it is Matt Iwanik now here on Edmonton Sports Talk. And as Huss said, that was the Lock Shop. And I'm up. I will take you up just actually in a few minutes here because the oil stream will be coming up with Tom Gazzola and Joaquin Gage. They'll have you covered on the Edmonton Oilers and what do the Oilers do moving forward from here. The Oilers had today off. They got the Heritage Classic coming up on Sunday. Expecting that they'll have that skate tomorrow down to get used to the ice down at Commonwealth Stadium and dealing with the lights and everything like that. But where do the Oilers go from here? What is the issue with the Edmonton Oilers? And is it time to hit the panic button? Tom Gazzola, Joaquin Gage coming up in mere minutes with the Oil Stream live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, edmontonsportstalk.com for those listening on the audio stream or now on TuneIn. Download the TuneIn app, search for Edmonton Sports Talk. That way you can also favorite us. There's a little heart. Just click a little favorite and it'll be there a little quicker for you. Or you can even go on the website, tunein.com, to listen to us. You can also watch us on YouTube for those that are watching. Speaking of the Lock Shop and the betting, the Edmonton Sports Talk parlay is up and live. It is plus 300 right now. And what you'd be betting on for that plus 300 is Dusty's pick of the Calgary Stampeders plus 2.5. Dusty's going to be calling that game live on TSN. And then we got the big game tomorrow down at Foot Field. University of Alberta Golden Bears taking on the UBC Thunderbirds. The winner is the regular season champ of Canada West. They will have home field throughout the playoffs. UBC beating the Bears just a few weeks ago out in BC. So we'll see what the Bears can do tomorrow. But on the Sports Talk parlay, we've got that game over 47.5 points. Now, I know weather is going to be a little bit of a factor. We'll have some wind. It's colder. One thing that might benefit the Bears quite a bit because they got a really good running attack. They've got a couple guys that could run extremely well. But when they met the first time, they had 46 points in the first half. UBC in themselves put up over 50. The Golden Bears put up over 30 in that game, so it was over 80 points. I just struggle seeing how they're going to also drop over half of those points going into this one. Like, yeah, it's not going to be as high scoring due to the weather, but there's points that could be scored from both those sides. So the Edmonton Sports Talk parlay, Calgary Stampeders +2.5, UBC Thunderbirds, Golden Bears over 47.5. Head to coolbet.com, click on exclusives, and that's how you can bet that one. That will wrap up the lock shop for today. Like I said, coming up in mere minutes at the top of the hour at noon, Tom Gazzola, Joaquin Gage, they'll be live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk with the oil stream, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back in a few moments.